Okay, first we're going to begin by defining some terms. First term we're going to define is PC games. A PC game is a game designed to be played on the personal computer. The upside of these games is they have better graphics and more interesting and complex storylines due to the capabilities of a personal computer's programming. The downside of these games is you have to maintain your computer in order to play the latest, greatest games, and they tend to become obsolete quickly. So you spend a lot of money upgrading your computer, and then you spend a lot of money playing new games, buying the new games, um, and also your older games will eventually become unplayable on the newer computers because they're not backwards compatible. A couple examples of this kind of game. The very first personal computer game was The Wizard and the Princess. It was a very, very simple game for the Apple. It was a puzzle game. You walked around the world trying to figure out how you could pick up objects to interact with the world in order to save a princess that had been captured by a wizard. Very, very recent, very popular computer game is World of Warcraft, which is not only expensive in how you buy the game and how much you have to buy to upgrade your computer so it can play the game, but also you have to pay a monthly subscription fee. So, consumerism lives. Good to know. Next term we're going to define is consoles. A console is a gaming system other than a personal computer. These are things like PlayStation 3s, Nintendo Wii's, Xbox 360s. The interface hooks up to your television set and then allows the game to be played on the television set. Um, the games have to be programmed specifically for the system, so a PlayStation 3 game will only work on a PlayStation 3. They are considerably less expensive than a personal computer, although they're still pricey. I think a PlayStation 3 will run you about $600. Um, and any of the next generation consoles, actually, that's in the $400 to $600 range. Um, but you have much more limited graphics capability, and the storyline is considerably more limited because there's just not the kind of programming complexity available in these smaller console systems. And this term kind of goes to the last term. These are console games. Console games are games programmed for consoles. So, um, Twilight Princess is an example of a console game for the Nintendo Wii console system. Jade Empire is a game for the Xbox. Um, the games are defined by their console specs and by the market share who buys that particular console. So, Xbox has a lot of sports-related games, and then it also has games geared for multiple player interaction. These games usually have simpler interfaces than a computer counterpart. For example, the Morrowind game for the PlayStation 2 was very, very different from the computer version of the same game, Morrowind. There was just not nearly as intense a storyline or as open-ended a game. Now we're going to get into one of my favorite genres in gaming. This has played a very significant part in the way I think about video games, what defines a good game for me, and these are role-playing games. Role-playing games are defined by their stories. They have always some kind of linear plot, and the hero is playable. You There is a character. You're often playing a specific character in the game, but you as the player control that character's actions. And there's also antagonists, or one or multiple. Usually the better ones have multiple. Um, in order to beat the game, in order to get anywhere in the game, you have to interact with NPCs and engage in the storyline. Some of my favorite role-playing games: Final Fantasy VII for the original PlayStation, The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind for the PC, and Suikoden 3, which is also a PlayStation 2 game. Okay, and the other genre I want to talk about that's also a favorite are puzzle games. Puzzle games are kind of hard to find anymore. They are games wherein you navigate a world, pick up items, and use items and your brain to solve the game's puzzles, and that gets you to the end. And you your game score is based on your completion of those puzzles. Um, they can be very, very, very challenging. By and large, they've been absorbed into other games. So you'll find role-playing games with puzzles in them. You'll find occasionally you'll find action games that have different puzzles in order to get through certain stages of the game. I think I've even seen strategy games that have puzzles built into them. But you don't see very many pure puzzle games anymore. Most of them are at least 10 years old now. The Wizard and the Princess, the first game for the PC, that was a puzzle game. The entire King's Quest series, that was 7 games altogether, were all puzzle games, and they were a lot of fun. Actually, that might have been more than 7. And then there was the Myst trilogy, which was the most recent pure puzzle game I am aware of, and one of the most difficult.